So I was scrolling through social media today. Saw an article. Started doing a little bit of research into it. And I realized we're all fucked.
The whole world is fucking sick. And there's only a few beams of light. I said something. By the way, this is John. And I'm Shane. And I said something to you the other day that really struck you, I think. And it really kind of blew my mind a little bit. Anyone who has ever preached for peace and love and all that good stuff has been murdered and assassinated. MLK, JFK, who was the other guy?
Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. Probably the most prominent man that spoke peace.
Anyone who speaks for peace ends up being killed.
Yeah, and now we see why, because of sick fucks like this.
So we found this first article today. Epstein's sex trafficking was aided by J.P. Morgan, alleged in a lawsuit in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So right off the bat, J.P. Morgan, biggest bank in the world, basically.
I bank with them.
So do I. So does just about probably everybody.
So they're using my money
You probably
to
either
steal
have
children,
a checking
rape them.
account, a savings account, a credit card, a loan. You have something through J.P. Morgan. And even if you don't, a loan you took out was probably sold to J.P. Morgan. It's something you have.
You're good. Keep talking.
Something you have is through J.P. Morgan. Anyways, on to the article. The government of the U.S. Virgin Islands alleges in a lawsuit filed this week that J.P. Morgan Chase turned a blind eye to evidence that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein used the bank to facilitate sex trafficking activities on Little St. James, the private island he owned in the territory, until his quote-unquote suicide in 2019. So, as we continue through this article, it's talking a little bit about what's being alleged in the lawsuit. It accused the bank of ignoring evidence for more than a decade because of Epstein's own financial footprint and because of the deals and clients that Epstein brought and promised to the big bank. Now, that's probably partly true, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think it goes to these elites that run these banks probably had ties to him a little deeper than just he brought them some loans.
So, more than a decade, his financial footprint, and because of deals and clients that Epstein brought and promised to the bank. Okay. Now I have a question, because I don't know jack shit. Okay? What the fuck was Epstein? How did he get to be so powerful and rich? Oh, you don't know either. Okay. We got some fucking learning to do. Because I don't know. I don't know how...
Let's find out.
I don't know how he made his wealth.
Epstein founded his own consulting firm, Intercontinental Asset Group, which assisted clients in recovering stolen money from fraudulent brokers and lawyers. Epstein described his work at the time as being a high-level bounty hunter. So he was involved in finance from his beginning, and he made his money in finance.
Okay.
Back to the article. This next part says, the bank allegedly facilitated and concealed wire and cash transfers that raised suspicion of, and were in fact a part of, a criminal enterprise whose currency was the sexual servitude of dozens of women and girls in and beyond the Virgin Islands. So, and then there's another part of the article down here that said, maybe that's a different article that we'll get to, where it talks about how basically Jeffrey Epstein's accounts that he had with J.P. Morgan Chase were the accounts he used to launder the money through that he was making from sex trafficking. And those would be the wire and cash transfers it's talking about concealing.
So money he made from like having people come to his island and do all this
from
sick
sex
shit.
trafficking people, from girls, from minors.
So the bank pretty much was like, okay, he gave them the money. They took the money and said,
Banks have all kinds of
Safe.
stipulations. There's all types of federal laws that if you do wire transfers, if you do deposits, if you do withdrawals over very small amounts, it's like 5, 10, 15 grand at a time in different banks, that they have to file things with the federal government for tax purposes. So if he was doing these giant wire transfers and doing these big cash transfers or deposits or different things with JP Morgan, it would have to be reported to the government. And of course the government, Big Daddy IRS would come to you and say, where's this money coming from? We want our cut. But if JP Morgan was concealing and facilitating these transfers, they were obviously trying to hide something from him. And so that brings us to article number 2. U.S. Virgin Islands District Attorney fired days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase over Jeffrey Epstein ties. What a fucking coincidence.
That always happens.
What a coincidence.
Anytime something fucked up happens and someone's like, hey, we need some justice here,
they're fired.
They get whacked. Every time. And this is the part we're talking about where pure evil seems to rule the world, really. And anyone that speaks for peace is either silenced, threatened, or fucking killed. Which I originally thought happened to Andrew Tate.
That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
Turns out Andrew Tate was a pimp. Anyways. Which, I mean, I guess isn't a surprise, considering he literally called himself a pimp. But,
And I can picture him with like a purple coat on and the fucking hat with
I can see it. He's got a cane, beats women with it, things like that.
I actually could see him wearing that.
So this article continues. The U.S. Virgin Islands top prosecutor has lost her job days after filing a lawsuit accusing financial giant J.P. Morgan Chase of turning a blind eye to Jeffrey Epstein's multi-decade sex trafficking operation. It continues. The Attorney General, or let's go down one here. So it was on New Year's Eve that the Virgin Islands governor, Albert Bryan, confirmed to several news outlets on the island that Miss George had been removed of her role amid reports that he had been blindsided by this lawsuit. So he fired her because he didn't know about the lawsuit? That's what they're claiming? Last time I checked, in the United States, so this is part of the United States, a little different because it's not a part of the state, but it's ruled by the federal government ultimately. The federal government and the Justice Department, for example, in the main 50 states, are supposed to be completely independent and separate resources. Is that the Department of Justice and the Attorney General does not have to come and ask the president for permission to prosecute someone or to file a lawsuit. It's an independent branch. But now he's saying he fired her for not knowing or being a part of this lawsuit. What happened to it being an independent, separate branch that is supposed to pursue justice and not have to ask for permission to do it?
Mm-hmm. So the governor of these Virgin Islands, right? So it's not a united state, but it is something we control.
Well, it's a territory of the United States. Like the Mariana Islands or like the Philippines used to be, so on and so forth. It's controlled by the United States.
So this prosecutor
was the district attorney of the island, or of the islands.
She was the top prosecutor.
Yeah,
too.
she was it would be like if a president. It would be like if our attorney general in the United States filed a lawsuit or took up a case against an individual or a company, and the president came out and fired them 2 days later. It's the exact situation, just on the Virgin Islands.
You talk about red flags in a relationship. That's a red flag in the way our world is governed.
Red flag.
It is a red flag in the way that the world works. Because it's like, here you have the most vile, evil man doing things with children. It's fucking disgusting what this guy did. And you have someone that wants to dig into this and bring these people to justice that helped this fucking guy.
And clearly has some type of evidence that J.P. Morgan was facilitating his actions. Here is what makes all this worse. So this district attorney here, Miss George, lovely lady. Let me just say.
Whoa.
What?
They just took a job from a black woman.
Yeah. That's kind of racist. So this beautiful woman, Miss George, was relieved of her duties, as they call it, on New Year's Eve. A couple days after, filing this lawsuit against J.P. Morgan Chase. Who visited the U.S. Virgin Islands right when this lawsuit was filed. And subsequently, this lady was fired a few days later. Well, it was no other than our sniffer-in-chief, Joe Biden.
Joe, who knows her, leaned forward and whispered some encouragement, telling her that she was doing great, that she looked wonderful.
Did his actions make her feel uncomfortable?
No.
What the fuck? Sniffer-in-chief. A lawsuit is filed against J.P. Morgan Chase for having ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Joe Biden comes apparently flying in to just play some golf and relax, and the next thing you know, she's fired, and I guarantee you a new district attorney is going to be put in place that will probably just sweep this under the rug and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Why? What a coincidence. No matter what you think about Joe Biden, there is no question that Joe Biden is a longtime member of the establishment of the Democrat Party. Who else has been proven to have ties to Jeffrey Epstein that are longtime members of the establishment of the Democrat Party? Could it be the Clintons?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible the Clintons called up Joe and said, hey, do us a favor, Joe. Go get rid of that district attorney.
Yep. Bury that shit. Because you know what,
It's just
dude?
an awfully big coincidence that Joe Biden rolls into town right after the lawsuit, December 30th here. He rolls into town right after the lawsuit and right before she's fired. Awfully big coincidence. Now, I understand. Oh, well, he has security. They knew he was going there long in advance. I'm just saying it's an awfully big coinky-dink. The new district attorney, and this lawsuit's just never going to be talked about again.
Never.
It's going to be under the rug.
And you know what? I also don't want this to turn into, fucking Republicans talking about the Democrats
No, because
again.
it's all elites in government.
It's fucking all of them.
It's not Democrats. It's not Republicans. It's all of them.
Maybe not every single one, but for the most part, you give someone that kind of power and influence, and even you hear all the time that it's a system where it's built on corruption. These people are paid dog shit.
I know that for a fact.
That's why Nancy Pelosi's inside trading.
Yeah, I know for a fact that it's not all of them. Because there's, 400 and something congressmen, there's 100 senators, all these people aren't in on it, obviously. It's a lot of these people just got elected from their district in frickin' Idaho, and they just want to get some jobs and some clean water to their people, and that's all they're trying to do. The people who are involved in this are the elites who stay in government for 50 years, who are inside all the institutions that bounce from Congress to Senate to Vice President to chair of this to Secretary of State to on the board of this. These are the people that stick around for decades and really control everything. Not just Joe Biden, but people you've probably never even heard their names before. They're on the board of the Federal Reserve. They're on, they're part of the central bank. They're part of the CIA. They just stay around forever in these bureaucratic positions where they have no accountability to anyone to ever vote them out of any type of office. And they just hang out for 3 decades, and they're the ones really controlling everything.
And this is why I think calling for term limits would be a good idea. But would that fix the problem?
No. Because the problem is if you institute term limits for certain offices, all they're going to do is just do what they do now and bounce offices. They'll serve their term limits in the House and move to the Senate, serve their term limits there, move to a governorship, serve their term limits there, become a Secretary of State, become president, yada, yada, yada. They'll just bounce around for 30 years.
It's scary that there could be a time where we end up like those people, where something that has been built on a foundation of freedom and maybe not exactly truth, because no one tells the fucking truth, but you think George fucking Washington was out there, freedom, and then he went back to his house and told his slaves to make dinner and get the fuck back out there, So it's
well, and it's just a fact of history that all great empires fall.
And it's just a matter of time, I think, when ours will fall.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing, is you see shit like this, and you're like, what the fuck? Why are people not upset about this dude that was trafficking children and bringing all these rich, powerful people to the island to fuck them. Like, I mean, it's fucking sick.
You have his lieutenant, his right-hand woman, Maxwell, who goes on trial. The trial is behind closed doors. No media is allowed. She find out she has a client list of people who were trafficking these children and people who were visiting this island and having sex with minors who were being trafficked and doing all this stuff. And what do they do with the client list? Oh, it's sealed. You can't see it. Is anyone being prosecuted? No, but don't worry about it.
But I've seen this before. It's kind of like the JFK files.
Yeah.
Yet again, a man that preached peace and was assassinated. Who knows if we'll ever know the truth of what really happened there.
Well, just recently, with the most latest dump with the JFK files that happened, they released some more just like a couple weeks ago.
They did?
Yeah, and some of it is basically directly connecting to what people have been theorizing for a long time now, but it was basically proven true, is that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA agent. He worked for the CIA. And so what the hell is a CIA agent doing assassinating the president? But yeah, it's 60 years later now. No one really cares.
So he was legit an employee of the CIA.
Yeah, he had connections to the CIA. And that's why people always thought it was weird that Lee Harvey Oswald was able to defect to Russia and was able to fly back and forth between the United States and Russia in the height of the Cold War, and he was allowed to keep doing it and go as far to bring a Russian bride back from Russia into the United States. That did not happen. That was not allowed. But Lee Harvey Oswald was able to do it for some reason. Why? Could it be because, with his links now that we know that he was tied to the CIA, that he was working for the CIA and doing some type of shit in Russia for him, and that's why he was allowed to go back and forth? Because no one else was. Not with the freedom Lee Harvey Oswald was. He renounced his citizenship and went to Russia. There's just too many coincidences. Again, coincidences going on in the JFK thing to believe that there wasn't some fishy things going on. And it's the same thing with this Epstein trial. It's the same thing now with this stuff with JP Morgan. It's the same thing with MLK and what happened to him. And then JFK's brother comes along and he's assassinated before he ever has a chance to be president. And yada, yada, yada. You go down in the line. You keep going. And it's it's endless.
It's a constant cycle of lies and corruption. I mean, the whole theory of... I know this isn't a fucking video about Lee Harvey Oswald, but it's about the government in general. Any government, not just
any
the
government
United
in the world
States.
is corrupt. I would just say, and this is kind of what I've come to, is that any news story I read, anything that's a government statement, anything a politician says on TV, I am immediately skeptical of whatever they say.
Yeah.
I'm immediately skeptical. And it's it's sad that you're at a point where that's necessary.
Well, I think that's also as you grow with age, you realize everything is not the way you thought it was. Because you're growing up and you're seeing shit and you're realizing oh shit, that guy just fucking lied to me. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, everyone around here is fucking lying.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Well, and it's when you, and so many people, our schools do not teach you in elementary, middle school, high school, even college, they do not teach you about how elites kind of slowly transform not only our country, but other countries throughout history in the world. You look at the United States, and you look at how it creeps in. It started with, fractional reserve banking becoming big, and then that moved into these big bankers kind of taking over, like Mr. JP Morgan when he was alive and others. And then they create things and get together and form things like the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to control the money supply, and then all the shady stuff they've done. And it's just, and then you got the World Central Bank then that goes on and does shady stuff. And there's these families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers that hundreds of years later are still around controlling the monetary system and are on the boards of the Federal Reserve or on the boards of the World Central Bank or in the, monetary fund and all this type of stuff. And it's these are global elite families that have so much influence and have had so much influence for hundreds of years. And a lot of these other newer families too for decades. and they just fly under the radar with so much stuff they do. I mean, the average person, if you go to them and say the name Rothschilds, they don't even know who they are. But they are probably the most powerful, influential banking family that has ever existed. And they're still around today.
Yeah. And I don't know about 70% of what you just said. Because I can't retain that shit.
That, I mean, of the elites, if that's what you want to call them, of the globalists or whatever words people use, it doesn't matter what you call them. It's the people who run the world. It's like there's maybe a couple thousand of them across the world that really have most of the power and influence over everything.
And the reason they stay under the radar is because they're not out there talking and getting spotlight.
No, they stay out of the spotlight on purpose.
Which is exactly why Andrew Tate's in so much shit, because he couldn't help himself.
Well, yeah, he went on the internet and just basically exposed himself.
Yeah.
And then he basically went on the internet, admitted to committing crimes, and then was shocked when he got arrested. So it's like, I don't know.
It's the Matrix.
Yeah. The Matrix is after me. It's like, bro, whatever. And that's why you have families like the Rothschilds. If you go to Forbes' top 500 richest list, you won't see a Rothschild on there. But they are richer than most people on that list, if not all of them. We have no idea how much they're really worth because they hide it all and they stay out of the spotlight. And those are the people you have to worry about. You don't got to worry about Elon Musk buying Twitter and shooting his car into space. He's not doing nothing. No one needs to worry about that guy. You need to worry about the people that you don't hear about. Those are the people you need to worry about. Those are the people who are pulling strings behind the scenes and trying to stay hidden and doing shady shit. You don't need to worry about Elon Musk talking about Dogecoin on Twitter. It's like, that's not the issue. But bro, he revolutionized the car industry. He revolutionized space. I mean, before SpaceX came along and started doing their, being able to reuse rockets, being able to do private satellite launches and private internet, like, he's revolutionizing all kinds of industries. It's like you look at what he's doing with, the Boring Company and trying to make traffic better in major cities with tunnels underneath them. You see what he's doing with Neuralink and AI to try and help people with disabilities. You see what he's doing, all of his companies. It's like this guy he's just a genius entrepreneur who likes trolling people on the internet. He's not the guy you got to worry about.
And what is insane about all the stuff that he is doing that's good is, what has the government been fucking doing with all this money? They're getting trillions of dollars to spend on things, and this motherfucker over here that made his money doing shit, he fucking PayPal and Tesla, and he dumps all of his money back into his companies, and he's trying to better humanity. I really fucking believe that. I mean, how did NASA never come up with the fact that you could just maybe reuse the fucking rocket if you could land it again? You had to have this private citizen figure that shit out. You could possibly... What are the diseases Neuralink could supposedly...
Things like...
vision.
Yeah, vision, hearing. They're even talking about people who have been paralyzed, all that type of stuff.
If you've never had vision in your life... Now, this is, speculation.
It's in testing phases.
It's going to be going into human trials if it's not already. But supposedly he thinks you could restore vision to people that were born blind with Neuralink, that's insane.
That's insane.
I mean, how do you even figure that out? I have no fucking idea. And that's why I'm not rich. Because what the fuck? How do you do that? But, like the government, literally. I mean, look at this one package they just fucking passed. $1.7 trillion.
And here's what they do with these things. They propose 4,400 pages? So that's longer than like 3 Bibles put together. That's how long this book is. It's longer than any dictionary you'll take off a shelf. It's ginormous. There's no way you could read it and understand it in a month, much less the 3 days they had to read it and then vote on it. And it's like the reason they pass these giant packages is so that they can shove all kinds of shit in there and just hope it gets through. And then you have to find out 2, 4, 5, 10 years down the line what you actually passed. And they just hide all this stuff in there. And it goes through. And then you hear things about the government when there are audits that happen to the Pentagon, or there's audits that happen inside the IRS, or there's audits that happen in all kinds of different departments of the government where they're like, oops, lost $3 trillion. Oops, lost 800 billion. Oops, lost 1.5 trillion. How do you lose $1 trillion? How do you... And it's because it's the government, everyone's just like, oops, and moves on. If you were in a private company and you lost 100 grand, you'd probably be fired.
Elon Musk is in the news for losing $200 billion.
Of his net worth, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like,
but
they're talking about that, but you're not going to talk about how the government, with our tax-paying dollars, just seemed to lose $1 trillion of it. How long would it take for the government to make $1 trillion off of taxpayers?
Well, I think last year, just on income tax, they took in like 2.5 trillion or something. Yeah, and that doesn't include sales taxes. That doesn't include property taxes. That doesn't include corporate taxes. That doesn't all the other taxes, gas taxes, and all kinds of other taxes. But just in income taxes, they took in like 2.5 trillion.
That's insane. So what do they do with the money?
But when the Pentagon over 10 years loses 2 entire years of collecting tax revenue just out the window, don't know what happened to it. Sorry, see you later.
Could it potentially be secret projects?
It could be secret projects, but there's other departments that lose money too, and it's corruption is what it is.
I just don't understand how literally just a citizen is revolutionizing all these industries. You know, I mean, you hear these motherfuckers talk about climate change like the world's going to end in 10 years. Like, holy shit, we got to get rid of all the gas. We got to get electric cars. We need fucking solar panels. We'll pay for all of the solar panels.
And that's another thing. It's not about saving the planet. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the activists and a lot of low-level people, and there's people who got good hearts who are actually concerned about the environment. God bless you. But these elites, they don't give a fuck about rising ocean levels. They don't give a shit about people chopping down trees in the Amazon. They don't give a flying single diddly fuck about that stuff. What they care about is being able to pass this legislation through in the name of climate change to control people and to gain more power. That's what they care about. These things talking about this digital passport stuff and this, like China's policies. You have people in the United States through the pandemic, including people like Dr. Fauci himself, praising China for the way they handled the virus, when what China did is, to this day, 3 years later it's been now, they are still have entire sections of their country where people can't leave their house. They have these situations where if someone tests positive somewhere, they lock you in a bubble and send you to a camp.
But have you seen the other thing they've been doing lately where they have drones flying with QR codes? And you have to scan the QR code. I don't know how it does it, but somehow it tells whether you test positive or negative for COVID. I also heard something in the UAE.
What about the UAE?
Like that social credit system where if you were, like, let's say you were speeding, right, and you get caught, and they're like, hey, we caught you speeding, you know, we already fined you this and took it out of your bank account, and it docked some points on your fucking license or whatever the fuck, right, your passport.
Well, and that's what's concerning to me about everything going digital, is that, and people don't see it this way, but because people think...
Because it's awesome.
Yeah, because it's cool. Because people think, oh, my passport is just digital now? How convenient. I don't got to carry around this book that I could lose. Oh, all my money now is just on my phone and it's digital? Oh, how convenient. I don't got to worry about going to the bank, or I don't got to worry about carrying cash or things. How convenient. It's all convenient until it's all controlled by the government, and they can start deciding what you can and can't spend money on. They can start deciding when and where you can travel and when and where you can't travel. It's like it's all convenient until the policy is used to control you.
Sorry.
I believe that sporting events are part of what's made to distract us. And this goes back to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, why did the Roman Empire popularize gladiators so much? Why did they build the Roman Colosseum? They didn't do it because they loved tigers and watching dudes get ate by them. They did it because it was built at a time of turmoil inside the Roman Empire where people were getting rebellious. And they said, basically, how can we distract these people? Well, let's give them something to entertain them. At the time, they didn't have iPads with, Cocoa Melon on it. So they said, well, how do we entertain people? We put on these glamorous, huge shows. So they built the fucking Roman Colosseum and had it all the time. These gladiator fights and these shows with all these exotic animals they brought from Africa that no one's seen before. And all this crazy stuff to distract the people so that they can just keep doing the corrupt shit that they were doing and not have to worry about rebellions. And it's exactly what they do now. Netflix and Instagram and TikTok, where you just get stuck scrolling, and then all these arguments where they have us fight each other, and sporting events and all that. It's all made to distract you. Because then we have articles like we've been reading today that come out and no one hears about it. Because it gets overblown by, oh, did you hear what Trump tweeted last night? And, oh, did you see this new TikTok star got arrested? And that's the news. Yeah. That's the news. Stuff that actually is happening that matters.
The news, the stuff that really goes viral is just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it's stuff that does not matter.
Did you see Kylie Jenner's lip filler? Why the fuck should I give a fuck? Why do I care? But you'll hear women talk about the Kardashians all fucking day. What do men talk about? Football? Good God, I can't walk into a fucking room that a man's not talking about a sport. Shut the fuck up. It really is like there's so many distractions. And we all do it. It's never gonna...
we all do it. I get distracted.
It's never gonna not...
I find myself going on for weeks, enjoying football and doing things at work and yada yada, and then I come home and I read something like this and I get snapped back into reality and I'm like, holy shit, we're all fucked. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm like, there's pedophile rings that are involved by the biggest institutions in the United States and nobody cares.
No one talks about it.
No one cares.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
So I guess in conclusion, this is my message. Beat women. No. I'm going Andrew Tate on you there. No. So in conclusion, this is my message.
Oh,
just be aware. Don't believe what you're just told. When you see a politician say something, just don't accept it. I don't care if he's a Republican. I don't care if they're a Democrat. I don't care if they're some head of an agency. Just don't believe him off the bat. Ask questions. And be skeptical.
I'll give you a great example. Something that I think the black community got a head start on, which is, there's corrupt police. They don't trust the police. Why? Because they fucking beat them. They murdered them.
Because of decades of corruption.
Yeah, decades of corruption. They locked black people up for crimes that never committed. A white woman could have gone to the police and said, hey, that guy touched me, he raped me.
And they were just hung with no evidence.
You were fucking dead. Because someone just said it. And if you think that corruption that's in the police system isn't in every other thing ever created, then you're ignorant, most likely. Or you just don't pay attention like me.
And this type of stuff, it does get you sometimes in a despair when you look into these things. You look into the JFK assassination. You look into stuff like this Epstein stuff. Whatever it is that's going on at the moment. And it can get you in a sense of despair. Because what do we do about it?
Well, there's nothing you or I can fucking do about it.
So I totally understand the view of just turn it off and ignore it.
Yeah. But
I think it's important to be aware.
It is, because...
It's important to not just accept what you're told.
Yes. Because if... And that I think is also why the Second Amendment, why people fight for it so hard. Because in America, if you take away the Second Amendment, what's stopping them from doing whatever the fuck they want? What are you going to run at the fucking White House with sticks? It's the only thing keeping the government from doing whatever the fuck they want.
This is true.
And it is very sad that mass shootings happen and that this shit happens.
I have one more thing. Be cautious of anyone who makes grandiose promises. That includes people who run for president, people who are doing anything like that, because that's how dictators get in power. They identify a group of people, or they identify institutions, or they identify problems, and they say, I'll fix it. Vote for me.
They all fucking
And
do
then
that.
they say, give me more power so that I can fix these problems. And then you give them more power. And then a new problem arises. And give me more power so I can fix these problems. Oh, there's a pandemic. Give me more power so I can stop this pandemic. Oh, there's a war in Ukraine. Give me more power so that I can help these people in Ukraine. There's some other thing going on. Oh, give me more power. Eventually, you've given them so much power
that you can't
you're
take it back.
You're living in a tyranny.
You're already knee deep in the shit.
It happens over and over again in history.
And didn't Hitler promise to like restore the fucking mother? No, that's Russia, the motherland.
Well, the
No.
motherland, German motherland, yeah, he did too.
Yeah. So Hitler gets up there and he's speaking to his people that were crushed, right? They were economically fucked. World War I was a shit show, and he's like, you know what? Follow me. Give me the fucking power, and I will turn this ship around. And boy, did he did a...
It doesn't always start with them attacking certain groups. You look at, it kind of does, because you look at like Lenin in the Soviet Union, and he was railing against the Bolsheviks and the rich and the Tsar at the time, and you look at Hitler, and his thing was the Jews, and they always identify a group of people or a set of issues, and that becomes their basically campaign point, and they're able to convince people, and by time you find out their true intentions, it's too late.
Yeah.
You've given them too much power. Even if you think you do have a good leader, because this was the situation with Hitler, is that the chancellor, that was the chancellor of Germany before Hitler, he had gained a ton of power because it had been given to him by the people, because they said, try and fix these problems. So when Hitler was rightfully elected, he already had an immense amount of power that was given to the previous chancellor, and he was able to use that power to do the things he did. And that's part of the problem, is that even if you have whoever you support that you think is going to be the best president in history, or the best, prime minister, depending on the country you're in history, they're morally righteous people, and they always do the right thing, and they do all the things to help people that they say they'll do, and yada, yada, yada. If you give them a shit ton of power to accomplish those things, the power doesn't leave with them. The power stays. And when the next person comes along, and the next person comes along, it's only a matter of time before a bad and corrupt person takes that position and then can use that power. So even if it's people you trust, still be cautious in giving them power.
Well, and COVID's a great example too, because everyone was scared shitless. So everyone was literally willing to just do whatever the fucking government said. Give up everything. Here you go. Help me. and they didn't do shit.
Nope. Not a goddamn thing.
They didn't do anything but close all your fucking jobs.
No.
So,
By the way, your 2-year-old now needs a vaccine if they want to go to preschool. And it's like, bro, what? All the data, refute stuff like that. But you've given them the authority to now make these decisions.
Help us grow our syndicate. We are not a gang. We are just a group of
Degenerates.
Yeah, some degenerates
who just talk about shit they don't know too much about, but they just feel like talking.
So help us grow our syndicate and subscribe. Start fucking thinking for yourself. All right? Don't listen to the fucking news. I don't even watch the news. That's why I'm so fucking clueless, first of all. But this guy has made my life better and made me more knowledgeable. I don't know if that has to do with anything, but help us grow our syndicate. And let's see if we can understand this world together.
Godspeed.